Good afternoon, everyone. It's Carpo again. Welcome to Carpo's Corner and the random ramblings of somewhat coherent soul. It's a beautiful sunny Sunday, beautiful sunny Sunday in October. I just walked out in the back porch to grab my camera, or rather my tripod, to make a video, and I looked over by the fuchsia plant, and there was this beautiful little hummingbird sipping nectar. And I sat and observed him for a moment. I thought about how only in recent times have we started to understand and basically decipher the way that they fly by using high-speed photography to observe that their wings are back and forth and up and down at the same time. What it comes down to is this little bird that weighs about as much as a nickel. It knows its purpose, and it knows what it needs to do. We as humans don't know our purpose, therefore we create purpose. And this is something that's very difficult to overcome, very difficult for people to understand, all of us. That it's something that I feel like we all know but don't consider enough, that we don't really ask ourselves, rather what does nature want from me, which is an important part of it. What do I want from life, and what do I want from nature? I think it's a realization that everything falls apart eventually, and really to embrace what we have, but it's more than that. It's to see that everything is interconnected in nature, and that it's such a mysterious thing. The idea that Darwin exposed, that everything happens for no particular reason, or that everything's random chance or mutation, is just absurd. I mean, my research into evolution shows that it's indeed something that happens. It's like the unfolding of a flower, or the way that a flower will change over time. Sometimes it's a matter of how we view a flower, different than a bee, for example. We can see a flower as yellow, whereas a bee doesn't see in the same color. They see in ultraviolet. So bees might see markings on a plant or on a flower that we can't even observe. So everything is observable in a different way to different creatures, if you will. That hummingbird, he hones in on that flower because he knows it's his purpose. He doesn't have to think about it or rationalize it or reason. But part of finding our purpose in life that's a very subjective search, but more this video is about how everything falls apart. And if you want to get into the deeper look at it, I guess, you start to look at the universe, and you look at there are terms that we use for it. I'm trying to get to avoid using wide terms or vague terms, but it's hard not to. Emergence is the creation of, let's say, order out of chaos. For some reason, things emerge out of this chaos at a certain level. So, in other words, for some reason, cells reproduce and create humans, okay? And the rest of the universe is in constant decay, but it's always in constant creation at the same time. It shows us that it's okay that we're not eternal, that that's part of the order. And that may not be as comforting, but when I sat down in this chair to make this video, I thought about the fact that this is an old rocking chair, and I got it from a guy I was working for a couple of years, doing carpentry on his house, and threw out a bunch of old antiques and stuff. And he said, "Do you want this chair?" It was my grandma's chair. I used to rock him in this chair. And so, it's close to 100 years old. And when I got it, it was in pretty good shape. And I left it out in the shed for a bit, and on the back porch for a bit. Got a few drops of water here, a little moisture there. And now it's starting to crack. And when something starts to fall apart, you can put some glue in there and you can repair it. But at a certain point, it just makes more sense to build a new chair than to try to salvage what is left. And this is a metaphor for everything. That no matter how great a human life is, no matter how many wonderful things you've done, eventually the novelty will wear off. Maybe not your novelty towards the world, but the world's novelty towards you. So in other words, if there is a higher power or a consciousness in the universe, what does it want from us, if anything? Of course, that's a widely vague question, but this is what I'm trying to distinguish and understand in my life, is what would be the natural process and order of humans. And we've created a lot of books and stories and religions to explain that for ourselves, but nothing is satisfactory for me to believe that it's divine knowledge and not just from the hearts and desperate attempts of man to understand the world around him. And why is it that we can move forward with some of our ideas? For example, in science, we can laugh at a new idea, but eventually if it proves itself true, we have to change our paradigm, the way that we see things. Why is it that in religion we can't do that? Why is it that a 1,000-year-old or a 2,000-year-old belief system can't be altered in any way, shape, or form? Well, that's because the people believe that the words are more important than the knowledge. So many of us have this idea in our hearts that we know that nothing can be forever, and we know that we're doing our best here, but it's just not enough. And you can see it reflected in the way that people try to live forever. For example, something as simple as Botox or hair dye or having surgery or a facelift. I'm not bashing that. If that's what moves a person, if a person is because it's more than just being wrapped up with image, is my point. As you get older, you don't want to age. And I've always been of the mindset that when I get older, I'm going to embrace it. It is what it is, When I get white hair, I get white hair. I mean, I just started getting white in my beard the last couple of years, and it's sure to spread. All I can say is at least I'm not balding, right? But I think that that's a crucial thing, is to realize that we too, we must fall apart too. Entropy is natural. We're all going to face it. I guess the question is, what lessons do we want to take with us through this life to help us ease the burden? And that's really the only message I have here, is to be that hummingbird and to try to understand things on a level that you can understand them on. And don't get too wrapped up in what other people are telling you is true or right or correct, I would highly advise listening to your peers to an extent, because as wise as we think we are as individuals, the collective has more experience, and there are certain values and ideals within society that we share, but everyone's different, and everyone has a different outlook and a different purpose that they have to create for themselves. So find your nectar, Find your nectar and your wings. I'm still trying to find mine. I'm 42 years old, and I'm completely rethinking, the path that I've taken in my life as far as how much motivation I've had towards doing things, changing things, exploring, And I've done a lot of mental exploring in my mind, and every day I'm writing and reading and thinking, but what it comes down to is applying that. And one of the most valuable lessons I learned when I was in my early philosophy stages was when old-timers would tell me, don't think too much, I took that to mean, in my mind, think about it a lot and then let it go, if that makes sense. That if you haven't considered some of the aspects of life, then you can't really let them go. But once you've thought about them and processed them and realized you don't know shit and you won't know, then you can either choose to have a belief system that works for you, or to say I'm open. And, being open is important, because things are always in flux. That's my morning ramble anyhow. Have a good day, everyone. And, yeah. Find your nectar.